It's telling me I'm live. Is this FUD?
I'm not trying to FUD, but it's not live.
Huh.
Maybe it just needs to go to 7.
It says excellent connection and end stream on my options.
There we go. It's live now.
Oh, it's live now?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
yes, it is.
Okay. Thanks for the FUD, guys. That's always welcome.
I mean, it wasn't live.
How's it going? Let us know again if everything's working technologically. Thomas says it's live. Flary Reuter as well. I tend to believe him. Cool. Okay. That was scary. But here we are. Welcome to Jujutsu Kaisen Fridays. I'm your host, Crypto Rand, and with me are my assistants, Loomdart and Crypto Donald. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Not Bitcoin. We made that joke before.
You're such a beartard. It's just impossible, man.
How am I a beartard?
But before we attack Donald on stream, off stream, whatever, under any circumstances, first of all, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, like the video. This is all, this is not new, but your support is appreciated. And of course, a thank you to the show's sponsor, which is Bybit. Their links are available in the description below. So it's Friday. It's been a long week. Here we are, and we're joined by Loomdart, the celebrity of crypto Twitter, made his return recently. Immediately gets on Up Only, and we are, of course, double dipping, second dipping, whatever the inappropriate term for that is. Loom, what's up?
Hello. Welcome all. My name's Loomdart. I'm on Twitter at Loomdart. Alright, sweet, that's my pill done. I'll see you boys later.
Yeah, we paid him $2,000 for that intro. This is the worst money we've ever spent. So as you all know, Casual Friday, the deal is it's casual, it's on a Friday. I go watch Jujutsu Kaisen after this is finished.
Oh, so good.
It's so good, isn't it? It's really, really good.
Amazing. Sorry.
No, I totally agree. And yeah, that's sort of where we're at. People asking for music. I'm not sure if there's a demand for music. I mean, God, you don't want me DJing, but if there's a particularly compelling reason to get that going, I'm sure it's possible. But yeah, we decided to get Loom on to talk about some of the interesting things he's been working on. Came back recently to both trading, more active on Twitter, working on stuff in the background. Doxed himself, his face on Up Only yesterday, and since then his activity on Twitter has actually gone down because he's had to reply to eGirls all day via Twitter DMs. So he's a very busy man, and doubly so now that all these girls know what he looks like. How's that been, Loom?
Bro, like, on a real note, I've got some weird DMs. I mean, it's all fun and games till they actually reply. So, yeah, let's keep it all PC. You know, I am merely a blue man, nothing more.
You might be the only guy that's gonna complain about DMs from girls.
Oh, no, all these girls in my crypto niche messaging me, wanting to chat. Oh, my life's so bad.
It's like you should never meet your heroes.
Are they your...
Until it happens.
I was just about to say, are they your heroes or are you their hero? I don't know.
How does that meme work, right? Because of course the floating meme on Twitter is that if there's anything remotely resembling a female on crypto Twitter, with like 2 followers, you'll be both of them, right?
Bro, this is an orchestrated FUD attack against my brand. I follow. So the way it works is I follow like everyone.
Right.
So there's 2 memes. It's either look, Loom's following this guy with 10 followers, or look, Loom's following this chick with 10 followers. And it's like you could just put them together, you know, and then be like, hey, Loom just follows everyone.
But that's not that doesn't have a ring to it compared to.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't get you as much clout.
Or just the ability to call you a simp is just so much more gratifying than looking for like boring stuff like the truth. I mean, who wants that?
Exactly.
This is true.
Lou, what have you been up to? So you were trading pretty actively a few months ago, right? And then went off for a bit. I think you publicly announced you were taking a break from the trading side of things.
That break was more to do with kind of like when the world went completely Gamestop insane. And legit at one point I was like actually super worried just about how it would end.
Right.
But I mean, GameStop dumped like 80%, but it wasn't too bad. Like I thought it might have been like just the amount of media attention on it, and like the Wall Street Bets threads and stuff was terrifying.
Yeah.
But no, I thought it would be like a huge backlash and just stuff would get kind of crazy. But I realize now I was just like super doomer posting.
Yeah, but I mean, it's going back up again. What do you make of
Got
it?
the chart up now, yeah.
Yeah.
101.
Well, I mean, at $50, GameStop was a market. The market cap was $4 billion, which seems like a lot, but like this is the meme economy. Like it's like a hot stock on everyone's lips with just unfathomable media attention. So
Yeah.
well, I felt like 4 billion was a pretty decent entry. And it's also just like if you're a big hedge fund and you want good favor with the people, like you could have just bought like 400 million worth of GameStop, which is like pennies to your portfolio, but just infinite social capital.
Yeah, we've seen some attempts to monetize, right? Like Chamath, I think, did that, and a couple of others basically made that play. I don't know. See, I don't know what to think of this chart generally, or just this whole GameStop. I mean, the hearing was just absolutely insane, right? When they got Keith Gill and Vlad and from Robinhood, and you had legislators who just didn't seem to know what to ask, asking really weird questions. It's also dystopian,
Yeah, it's certainly something, but it's like it feels like also the way the regulatory stuff's gone is I thought they'd like super nuke down on options and stuff,
Right.
just because like people have lost a lot of money, but they've managed to spin it such that it's more of like a thing where, oh look, these corporations aren't letting people trade properly, this is like a right they should have, which
Yeah.
I think is pretty cool.
But I mean, I think that's still gonna come. I think I'd be very surprised if they're leaving options unchecked after this is said and done. I mean, who knows if they're gonna do it? But like, let's say GameStop goes crazy again, right? We're in the same situation again, and if you're not expecting that to change, if you're not expecting the new way of life, which is everyone is a trader and everyone is just YOLOing into random stuff. If you're not expecting that to change, I mean, I'd be surprised if this could continue, right? At some point, they have to kind of step in, don't you think?
Well, I think I agree in that, like, the thing with options is it's not. It's like they banned leverage in the United States just because, like, it's just gambling. Like, you can kind of, you can try and wax very poetic and be like, hey, it's allowing you to hedge, yada yada. But the way most people use leverage is akin to gambling, and I think that's why it got nuked in America.
Haha, who does that? Haha. I only use leverage for counterparty risk. Me, good old me.
Yeah,
Not with my stop loss like 2 ticks away from price, going all in. Never done it. Must take some really weird personality defects to get to that point. Wouldn't know a thing about it.
But it's like, so the thing is, options have become that.
And even worse, right? I mean, options are pretty much even more leveraged than leverage.
I mean,
in
the
a
thing
sense.
with options is like, you can just straight up lose your money. Like, it can just expire at 0, and then it's like, oh, nice. And the thing is, it's expected to expire at 0 as well.
It's kind of crazy that's what everyone's just kind of been aping into, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like some Frankenstein thing where this was never meant to happen, but people are so kind of just rabid. They're so rabid for ways to gain degen trading exposure, and I mean, kind of rightfully so, because like they just want to make money.
Yeah.
But then you get the gamblers in as well.
With regards to that, like just scrambling to make money, and I know this is terrible transition, but I mean, NFTs, it's been going nuts in the last few days or weeks. Do you think that's the same, or do you think there's like more to it than just people scrambling to make money?
I'm just fucked off about NFTs. Do you know why? I was just getting my head around DeFi, right? I was like, okay, I've got like a good mental map of all these projects, what they do, like the different types of like branches of DeFi, right? Spot lending, synthetic lending, dexes, etc. Like just when I start getting to a pretty reasonable framework with these things, suddenly no one gives a fuck anymore, and it's all about NFTs. And if you're not on Top Shot, you're wrecked forever. And I'm like proper boomer dinosaur, struggling to keep up to a large extent. So yeah, if you want to shed some light on NFTs, that'd be pretty cool.
Well, I mean, the thing with NFTs is it's thankfully like way simpler than DeFi. I mean, it's just digital art, like it's artwork but on the blockchain.
So can I like? So look, what I like to do when I don't know shit about a topic is to give almost like low-hanging fruit, low-ball questions, and then people kind of take it in whatever direction they want to, right? So for example, if you were to look especially early in the NFT debate, if it could be called that, there was the whole thing like, oh well, why the fuck would I pay whatever number of ETH for a screenshot, right? Or like, oh, here's my NFT, I'm just gonna like print out the web page, whatever, those types of arguments. I mean, where do these where do NFTs accrue their value? Is it just your kind of purely subjective meme? The Keynesian beauty contest thing coming back to rear its head, or is there something more fundamental to it?
Well, I mean, since it's such a simple kind of concept, you can really simplify it down. Like the whole value appeal is just like, well, yes, you can copy it, but will anybody want to buy the thing you copied?
Right.
So it's just the scarcity thing. Like, hey, this artist released an NFT. I'm going to copy it and list my own one. Well, no one would ever want to buy the thing you listed. And it's just a value thing from that angle. So I think the whole kind of like, you can just copy and paste it. Well, yeah, you can fucking, pardon my language. You can copy and paste Bitcoin. And it's like,
that's true. But what do you think about like, I mean, what we've seen before now with like these CryptoPunks, right? You can technically just take the art and then just sell it again on a different platform.
Like Binance Punks, is it? Or there's like I think BNB, a BSC has its own like hash masks and punks now, and like it's very portable. So it actually raises an interesting argument, doesn't it? That it's not necessarily the art itself. Like the value isn't contained in the art itself, but like the medium does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to.
I think a big
bunks, bunks.
So a big chunk of the current non-Ethereum NFT value. So let's say the Binance NFT value is basically Binance native individuals trying to kind of make Binance NFTs a thing.
Right.
So it's kind of like a seed investment. You just prop up price support for a few projects and kind of like make sure they don't rug. So there's some appeal. But I think you're both like 100% correct and 100% wrong in that this could be very detrimental for NFTs in general if people decide, well, I could buy this NFT, but it's on the Ethereum blockchain and, Binance might pop later on.
Right.
And then like it's effectively not worth as much because it's not on the most popular chain. But then like this is all art, so like value is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah. You can always kind of, I suppose it's the old meme, like when there was like a point where trashing like modern quote unquote art was like super popular. It's like, oh well, this guy just put like taped a banana to a wall. Do you remember that meme? Or there's like just a big red dot on the canvas which sold for whatever amount. Art, this isn't art. And then it almost come back full circle. But like art is whatever you want it to be, I guess. And if you add this whole digital ownership, scarcity, etc. element to it, you probably get something. Like if I'm being totally cynical, which I'm never, of course, as everyone knows, right? It seems like whenever crypto really takes off, and especially ETH really takes off, there's always this period of like Ethereum excess for a number of months where just anything on ETH which has some degree of scarcity, perceived or real, just starts taking off. I mean, I hate making the CryptoKitties analogy, but I think there seems to be a really close correlation between just like ETH performance in terms of price and then how much people actually give a shit in terms of using it for those scarcity purposes, the art, the collectibles, whatever. Do you kind of see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, so I kind of have a thesis for this in that where like, so there's always going to be a section of people who are ETH native. So like they own Ethereum, they transact in Ethereum, they grow their Ethereum, and they just don't care about anything else.
Right.
So when the price of Ethereum goes up 10x, they're suddenly worth a lot more. But like their interests aren't making direct USD profit trades or whatever. They just like they're interested in the Ethereum ecosystem. So let's say there's a nice NFT they want to buy. Well, their Ethereum is worth a lot more, but like it's still the same pool of Ethereum people who want to buy that NFT. So instead of Ethereum at $80, they'll be like, all right, I'll give you 1 ETH. Ethereum's now at $1,500, and they're like, okay, I'll give you 1 ETH. And I think that kind of value increase, like people from outside the space kind of see that. And then, well, I mean, whenever you see something go up a lot, your instant like reaction is, damn, let me get in on this.
Sure, yeah. That's a very
and that
interesting point.
kind of accrues value itself. I think a really good example of this is how, if you look at the Polkadot ecosystem right now, like it's complete fucking mania. Like it's 2017 crypto. Like random ICOs, random IDOs just completely popping off.
Yeah.
But it's not spread out of Polkadot. Like it's just in the dot ecosystem. And that's, I think, mostly because there are these dot rich individuals, like just people who've been in a dot ICO. They don't care about USD. They just transact in dot. But their dot's not worth $2. It's worth like $31.88. And so suddenly the 100 dot here, 100 dot there they're doing is worth a lot more.
Yeah.
And so if you kind of use that as a framework, it really helps you kind of rationalize why some Ethereum native NFTs are doing so well.
I mean, it's the same with BNB, right, and BSC, where like BNB went up a lot. There's a bunch of people that hold a very, very large amount of it, and then they ape into all the pancake, swap, whatever, everything that comes up, basically.
Yeah, I think exactly.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because we have this movement going on that is very centric to a few projects. So like BNB, and then we have DOT, and then we have ETH, and everything else hasn't really profited much from it, from what I've seen anyway.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
He's used to it.
Well, like from crypto traders from like 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, yada, like they've learned that if you like something, you invest in that something. You don't kind of extrapolate and try get more by like, oh, this project's kind of similar, I'll invest in this instead. Because, but I mean, for years now, we've seen that the initial project does really well and all the clones just like flop mostly. Because people are just like, well, if I like this project, why would I invest in that one? Like, this is the one I like.
True,
and like
yeah.
throughout crypto history, that's been the way to do it. And I think the people who still have most of the wealth, who have like kind of learnt to trade over the years, are those individuals who are like, well, I mean, if I'm bullish on this, why would I buy that? And that's why it's been kind of contained.
That type of behavior was so prominent and has been so prominent just on the way up, even just with Bitcoin going up. Like the amount of times I saw like, oh, crypto looks so bullish, Bitcoin's leading, etc. And then they just buy a bunch of dog shit altcoins which underperform Bitcoin for literally weeks on end. It's like, I mean, you're bullish Bitcoin, but you don't have a position in Bitcoin, and then I don't know. I just find a lot of it is like, it's not really cope. It's, at least from a purely trading one, it's like an ego thing. Like, okay, this is pumped.
I mean, it just makes sense, right? It's the concept of cheap and expensive.
Right.
Yeah, this altcoin costs me 30 cents, and it doesn't really matter if it's like Ripple or not. And then, yeah, they ape into it. It's kind of crazy to think about, like that some of these coins like Ripple, for example, if you've held that for the last 3-4 years, right, you're not really up anything. I mean, if you're looking at XRP USD, I mean, there's not been any gain since the high of 18. There's barely been any gain since middle of 17, whereas Bitcoin is up stupid in that amount of time. So it's kind of like you have like a few winners that pick the right project, and then you have a bunch of losers in the wrong ones. And yeah, it's kind of incredible to see, because I mean, in 17 we've had a little bit more of, okay, everything is going up together, everything is going down together kind of deal, and now we have like this. Okay, you have a few projects that do well, and then you have a bunch of projects that don't do anything. So
what I find weird is people like love to assert that crypto is the best market to trade because it trends, and then they'll never enter on a trend and just wait for something that's unpumped or like move to something else. I've always found that dissonance pretty strange. Like when we wrote about sushi at like $2.30 whatever, I thought we were late, right? I was like, fuck, this thing used to be just a few cents, then it like collapsed, then Sam took over de facto, right? And now it's pumped. Oh my god, it's like it's super late. But then if the setups are there, just this thing trends for way longer than most people think, right? It's in the right conditions. It's really difficult to actually be late to a crypto trend. If anything, you get that second leg where the early participants have already sold because it's like reasonable to sell on whatever multiplier, and then it kind of just takes a second breath, second life of its own. It's just like weird trading behavior that I observed, and for some reason it seemed particularly kind of exacerbated in this cycle. Liam, where do you think the market's at? I mean, have you been paying a ton of attention? Bitcoin, ETH, we had some stuff going on.
Go on your first point. It's like, I mean, we've been basically getting like screwed in crypto for the last 4 years, where it's just been like, hey, we're trading this crypto against this crypto, and it's been very zero sum.
Right.
But like, we're beyond the point now, like the needle tip, where it's known that crypto is valuable. Like, it's not a scam, it's here to stay.
Maybe you can convince Donald of that after the call.
Oh, God, but so it's no longer a point of, hey, look, I'm just going to flip this for that when it hits this point. It's more like, well, shit, this stuff's here to stay. It's going to be here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the world is in like just crazy topia. I mean, I could try and sell this here and buy a retrace, but like, what's the point? It's a legit project. And then suddenly it's like, it turns out there's not that many sellers and there's a lot of people who want to buy. And then you get stuff like sushi that just keeps going up.
Yeah, it's basically been every time something's in the spotlight, it's just done well. And I think the thing that a lot of people are getting caught up in is that that's been the exact opposite for the last few years. Whenever you've had anything in the spotlight, it's been oversubscribed to already, and then it just dumped off. I mean, I still remember like the counter trade meme. Everyone was like, okay, everyone is talking about Bitcoin, so I'm going to counter trade it. Yeah. Nowadays, if you're doing that, or if you've done that in general in the market, you've just been getting wrecked. You've been bearish on the most bullish things, and you've been bullish on the most bearish things. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what gets a lot of people wrecked, is that they're not moving on from the, okay, Bitcoin goes sideways, the entire crypto market goes sideways. So every time something is everywhere in the market or on Twitter or everywhere or like anywhere else, it used to be good to counter trade it, but now that's the exact opposite, basically.
I mean, I think there's a very simple reason for that, and that is that like when everyone was excited for a project and it was just crypto trading amongst crypto, very zero sum, it meant that everyone was already allocated.
Yep.
Whereas now, if everyone's excited for a project, it means that like, hey, look, this could be sold pretty well to people. I mean, we're in crypto, everyone's excited, but like us being in our crypto niche is still early.
Yeah.
And
you know what it reminds me of, Liam?
Liam?
It's like the point you made about where the attention flows. On the way up, and just generally, I don't know how much of this you guys saw, but I'd see a ton of tweets being like, okay, time to be careful, everyone's euphoric. It's like, mate, everything has just melted upwards, right? And everything's been mooning for weeks straight. You can't put a foot wrong. Like, what the fuck else? What other emotions are appropriate in those types of conditions, right? It's like everything's mooning. People are happy because everything's mooning, and you're there trying to play 4D chess. Like, okay, this is where the rug gets pulled. It's like by whom, right? It just doesn't make any sense. It's bear market PTSD, in my opinion.
The thing that ruins that is like, eventually one person gets it right, and then people enter this like, it's literally a cuck psychology where you're like, this guy was right, I was wrong, I lost so much money, I should have listened to him, I'm gonna look for this next time.
Yeah.
And then next time you don't realize that like people have been saying the exact same thing for the last like 4 months.
Yeah, like the top signals,
so
right?
The first time you see it, and then it's like, wait, shit, why is stuff still going up?
Yeah, I mean, kind of reminds me of margin, right?
Or whatever it is.
Yeah,
I mean, margin, major, whatever. I mean, he shorts the entire way up, and then every time he was right for a day on the way up, people actually was like, well, like, oh yeah, but this time I have to give it to him. He was actually right, and it's like, yeah, dude, like, of course. I mean, there's not going to be straight up like every like. There's going to be a pullback on the way up, right? And then, like, saying that is pretty damn stupid, in my opinion. So it makes sense to kind of call it for what it is, but it's always going to be the case. Like, I still remember in 17, 18, where we had the same kind of thing where a bunch of perma bears basically got a lot of clout for being bearish at 20K. And no one really realized that they've been bearish since 1K and didn't really matter. Like, it's always the case that once it actually does top out, you're gonna see some people like get insane clout for calling the top, and oftentimes those people have been bearish since basically the bottom.
I think the reason people don't look at your glasses are kind of clouded by the fact that you didn't sell at the top, so you lost money. So you're just looking for reasons to punish yourself, even though, like, well, I mean, you shouldn't. But so you ignore the fact that these people were wrong for a while. I think a good analogy is kind of like the whole stock market bears thing in 2008. It's like, in no world would it ever have been profitable to like just kind of listen to the stock market bears till 2008 happens, and like say you lose money, and suddenly your whole psychology flips, and like you lost a lot of money, you must have done something wrong, you just want to look for ways to punish yourself, and then you kind of start like listening to the bears.
And then you get wrecked on the way up again.
It reminds me of that joke that like Peter Schiff has called 20 of the last 2 recessions or something like that, where, yeah, I mean, these people end up being right eventually, but it doesn't matter, right? You don't make money that way. I think it's just like that Big Short, Wolf of Wall Street, whatever type of movie drama, and that whole sensationalizing the bearish side and the crash, etc. That's probably fucked so many people, because like generally bears that like long-term whatever macro bears don't make money trading US equities for the most part. I mean, yes, you'll have like counter trend models and whatever. But if you're like one of those doomers since 2008 being like, oh, QE, unsustainable, dollar gonna, double digit inflation, $100 oil and all that type of crap. It's just, you've just been wrong for so long. It's insane. I mean, Bitcoin's rescued some of them admittedly, but like those big libertarian bears, just been wrong for over a decade, and have been coping pretty impressively, in my opinion. What do you think of the S&P, by the way, Loom?
I haven't really had a read for like... So there was like this twilight period for a few months where it just traded beautifully. But it's kind of gone into like a weird zoney kind of... It's going up, but it's not really going up. It's kind of like chopping... Because it's literally just like a slight diagonal line upwards for the last like 4 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a trending market, I guess. So I haven't really had much of a read.
When the S&P, go on, David.
it's a pretty difficult market to trade, right? Like, I mean, the crazy part looking at this, right? You would think that it's really easy to trade, but it's much easier to invest in rather than trade because, I mean, something that's just sliding up like that, just sideways up, and then just sometimes takes a low or two and then just goes back to sliding up. It's pretty hard to trade, right? It's easy to put money in and then win if you look at the high time frames, but it's not as easy to just say, okay, yeah, I want to be taking a daily trade here or whatever. In my opinion, anyway, it's only getting easy to trade, or like, I mean, I found at least the March crash, February crash, whatever. That was the time where it gets easy to trade, just because of all the retail that kind of jumps in and it's like, okay, this is gonna go to zero or whatever, and then you have like these massive washouts that are fueled by emotions. Because like ultimately, I think that's the stuff that you can trade well. And then when it goes to, okay, you're trading against these large firms, you're trading against algos, you're trading against pretty much like people that are better than you at trading, it gets pretty difficult in my opinion.
So I kind of have a thesis for that in that, well, I mean, like markets are just people trading. Like if no one traded, the markets just wouldn't move.
It's all Sam, actually, but yeah, go on.
But like, so there's different people trading at different times. So when the market gets really choppy, you can imagine that most of the traders will be like actual kind of short-term traders, like scalpers, technical analysts. And so if all of these guys are like, hey, there's a trend line here, we better bid it, then like you expect the trend line to hold because the only people that are trading are looking at the trend line. But when you get like the stuff like the current move where it's just a pretty low volatility, slow crawl upwards, well, I mean, the traders don't have any money to make here, so they just stop. And then like the flow of people impacting the price flips from like, say, traders to Tom Lee just buying. Now that man gets so much negative PR for basically just being bullish on everything.
I mean, he's been right.
For like
Fundstrat.
Yeah, Fundstrat.
Right.
Like he gets shit on so much, but I mean, like this guy's just been right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's always, that's like the thing, and it's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen in crypto too. If this market nukes, right, or if any market nukes, and someone's been bullish on it and mega bullish, posting every single day, okay, this is gonna go up, this is gonna go up, this is gonna go up. He's gonna get quote retweets the moment it starts crashing, even if he said it for the last 600 days and it's up 1,000,000%. Like that's just kind of how I think humans work. Where it's like you look like an idiot if you've been bullish right before a crash, but I mean, if you're looking back on the track record of some of the bulls, I mean, yeah, obviously, if you're picking a random kind of time frame, they're gonna look like idiots, but they've been right. So yeah.
I think it's the clouded goggles of like prices went down, you're suddenly down a lot of money. And of course, it's not your fault. Like you couldn't have lost yourself the money. No, it's these bloody permaballs. And so you just become very like vicious and angry and just fried, like just crazy.
Yeah.
I think the psychology of trading is like super interesting.
No, bro, no emotions allowed. You just gotta execute, bro. That's what I find the weirdest fucking. Just like I can't even call it anything other than a notion because there's just like no good reasoning for it a lot of the time. Just these discretionary traders feel the need to almost present themselves more like in this very serious and what they think is like authoritative manner. So they say like, "Oh, bro, emotions don't play a part. You know, you're a fucking machine, bro, and you're supposed to just sit there and it's such rubbish."
It's just trying to show off, like, hey, look at me, I'm so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the opposite is true. Like, if you're well in tune with your emotions, they can actually be super helpful. At least I found them to be super helpful. Like when navigating certain trades, when planning entries, managing, when price is flying into one of my levels, and I'm like tempted to pull my orders, like all that type of stuff. It's just knowing yourself as if you trade discretionarily is so valuable. But everyone just seems to parrot the side. Not everyone. Now I'm myself. I'm committing a sin of everyone is bearish, everyone's bullish. But it's popular to argue that like emotions shouldn't play a part in it, etc. Well, if that's the case, then stop discretionary trading. Go get someone to automate your strategy, and happily ever after, right?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more.
No emotions.
It's impossible to turn them off, right? I mean, it's just a human has emotions. I mean, you're trying to limit kind of what the emotions make you do, basically, because I mean, we all have been there where we're like in a trade and we're like, ah, shit, I feel like this should be, and then it's just basically getting cold feet on a good idea.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's something that you kind of have to keep in check. But it doesn't mean, okay, you're not going to have emotions, because let's be real, like everyone has. Then again, I think where a lot of that comes from is basically position sizing, where it's like you're obviously going to be way over the top emotional if you're all in, and if you're going to lose your entire balance if you're losing the trade, right? At that point, you're obviously going to be just panicking. But that's not the problem of the emotions that you're having there. It's the problem of your positions, I see, more than anything, or your risk. So, yeah.
Loom, whenever the S&P looks like it's... Well, it doesn't look like. Whenever the S&P starts moving, crypto Twitter starts paying understandable attention, more so than usual. Well, first of all, everyone becomes like an expert on bonds, yields, etc. That's always fun. But more recently, the idea of correlation trades come out, and you know which tail is wagging which dog, you know, that whole sort of deal. You've written about like correlation trades before in the S&P 500, etc. And I think that at least on a very surface level, it's like the S&P moved down, Bitcoin moved down as well. We're a macro asset now, etc., etc. How do you kind of interpret all of this? Do you think it's like a short-term thing like it was in the past and we broke correlation? Is it just a nothing burger? What do you think?
Well, I mean, historically, whenever we've had very, very tight crypto to equities correlation, it's been a very derivatives-driven thing where it's like I guess like we said like a few minutes ago, where the type of person trading changes.
Right.
And so you get more of like the scalpers and the chart artists who are like, well, like these are just random numbers. So to trade, you kind of need something to go off of. And if you're like, oh, look, the SPX just broke support, you're inclined to be a bit more bearish Bitcoin just because there's no other data at that point in time. So that's kind of how the correlation starts. But it's like markets can be wrong. Because I mean, we had very, very heavy Bitcoin equities correlation from the 10K, 8K range, where for a while you were like completely right to trade Bitcoin in relation to equities and stuff. But what ended up happening is the traders slowly gave their Bitcoin to the hodl hands, the guys who are just like, well, I mean, I want to buy Bitcoin and these guys are selling it because the equities are dumping, so let me just buy it. And what ended up happening over like a few months is suddenly these correlation traders didn't have Bitcoin to trade. But like, well, I mean, equity stopped going down.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, at least with Bitcoin, in my opinion, you always get these correlations, and then people milk it, and the more people milk it, the more they expose themselves to it, I guess. And then at some point, you get this massive squeeze of that side of the trade, and we've had that in Bitcoin, right? Where we the SPX or in general, like the normal markets kind of dumped. And then Bitcoin went along with it. You got a bunch of people kind of pile in, and then you get a massive, massive green candle to the upside, even though like the traditional markets are still going down, and you can kind of see how they're getting wrecked, and that keeps on repeating. At some point, the correlation just dies. At least that's been my experience, kind of watching it, and then you start kind of diverging again, and In Bitcoin's case, just straight up afterwards, basically.
I mean, that's the benefit, right? It's like, I think Bitcoin's identity crisis as a macro asset is one of its strong points. If that, I know that sounds pretty weird, but like sometimes they're correlated with, performs well in risk off, performs well in risk off, follows equities, doesn't follow equities, outperforms gold, mirrors gold, and you can almost craft any narrative you want from a macro point of view if you get your timing right, And I don't think that's a bad thing if people give Bitcoin or value Bitcoin for different reasons. That I see that as a strength, not a weakness.
I agree with that, and I think also just like for Bitcoin to go down, someone has to sell. And some people may believe that Bitcoin's inverse to equities and it's like a store of value, so they might decide to buy when equities dump. Some people might think, hey, Bitcoin's an extra risk asset. If equities dump, Bitcoin will dump harder, so I'll like sell and short when it dumps. And then like eventually one side wins, so the price goes down a lot, and then the other side wins, and that kind of, it's like a baby just trying to find its footing.
And Michael Saylor just ends up with all the Bitcoin while they argue between themselves. He's underwater, right? Not his average at all. But his most recent buy was, I think, average 57, right?
No,
not
57.
57.
I think 53.
52,
I think
7. Yeah, it's 52,700. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
Do you? So, I mean, look, there's some questions being asked on the big boy trading side of things. So Square bought more. I think they're slightly underwater on that purchase. Saylor as well with his billion is underwater. People also pointing out that the GBTC premium is gone, right? So that arb trade is unavailable or is clearly shifted. I'm not an expert in this. I don't have a fucking clue, to be honest. We need Dan from CMS to come back.
I can mention some things.
Go on.
About...
Where do you give any weight to these factors? How are you interpreting the premium vanishing? And does it matter that Saylor's billion is underwater? All the big boy stuff. It'd be great to get your thoughts.
Well, I mean, so the way GBTC works is you send in either dollars that they use to buy Bitcoin and then give you GBTC, or you send in Bitcoin. But the thing is, the second you send in your dollars or Bitcoin and get GBTC back, you can't touch that GBTC for 6 months.
So used to be 12, right?
Yeah, it used to be 12 till I think a yearish ago.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look back 6 months on the chart and realize that this was the 10K kind of sideways consolidation we had, or kind of like when crypto started getting frothy. Actually, wait, it would be September. It'd be September or August. Well, kind of like when crypto started moving a bit again. We had like DeFi summer.
Yeah.
And when Three Arrows decided to invest into GBTC. So since then, GBTC has basically been it's just a supply demand thing. There was a lot of demand, but not much supply, because this whole kind of everybody needs to own Bitcoin thing happened. Yet people were still waiting on their GBTC redemptions to go through, because like the premium wasn't that high then. And no one is going to be like, oh, let me get some GBTC. Like, let me put Bitcoin into GBTC when the premium's low.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but now that people have done people are starting to get their GBTC back out, and they have been, I'd say, for the last few weeks. But I think the error is it's a different trade to being long Bitcoin. Your trade is basically, hey, I'm going to put Bitcoin into GBTC and hope that by the time it's done, there will still be a premium.
Is it 6 months?
6 months, yeah.
Okay.
So, do you I totally get all of that, but I mean, now it's at a negative premium, right? And I mean, that's interesting because, I mean, there has to be a reason for that, because people are basically getting out below Bitcoin price. What do you make of that?
I think, well, people just have a lot of GBTC, and some of these guys weren't even into Bitcoin. They purely bought Bitcoin and did the GBTC trade to get that premium.
Yeah. That's
And so
kind of my
those
view on it as well.
kind of getting squeezed. Whereas there's a bunch of new products coming out, and Grayscale still doesn't let you pull Bitcoin out. Like, there's no, you can't go to Grayscale, say, hey, I have 1 GBTC, give me this equivalent of Bitcoin. Like, they have no facilities to make that happen. So you're kind of stuck in GBTC.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it doesn't look, at the very least, I can't see it being the most competitive institutional quote unquote Bitcoin product for that much longer, right? Like, if we get an ETF, or I've seen like some GBTC, not clones, but analogous, similarly structured instruments, which have some of those features that you mentioned, or lower fees, etc. Maybe they shift to become more competitive, but if things go in this Wall Street super pro direction, I can't see the arb trade being available for that much longer, or at the very least some healthy competition, as if someone wants to allocate like through their 401ks or whatever.
We've had the stonks world kind of endorse Bitcoin, so there's zero qualms for a Bitcoin ETF now. Like, every argument they have is just completely blown out of the water. So it's not confirmed, but like, it's pretty obvious that a Bitcoin ETF is coming.
ETF confirmed, heard it here first.
but with this, sorry, no, go on.
I think the most important thing to realize is GBTC in and of itself is a different trade to being like macro long or short Bitcoin. And I think it does have some impact on Bitcoin price action, where like people see it and might decide to sell some Bitcoin. They're like, I was only long purely because of the GBTC premium, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they wouldn't be correct, but they wouldn't be wrong, because I mean, their thesis would have them up like 600-700% or whatever. But it's just a thing that might happen. So it kind of makes sense that the market's like a bit spooked by the GBTC premium thing.
Especially because it was associated with a big premium on the way up, right? That was one of those things.
But it's just like it's not completely different, because obviously like GBTC supply coming in is a pretty major factor, but you could also argue that there's just zero demand right now, and that's why the price is also falling. But I think it's way more supply side than demand side.
Do you think there's any kind of chance that it washes out, kind of like we've had in, I mean, I don't want to say, okay, Bitcoin's crashing to whatever, but I'm wondering if there's any way that we kind of get this liquidity crisis that we've had in 2020 in March on GBTC. Like, do you think there's a chance that all these people that have been kind of getting into GBTC to play the premium kind of start panicking, getting out, and then just kind of running over each other for the exit, and kind of get it to even more of a negative premium? Because I mean, that's the trade that I want to take, right? I would like to buy GBTC if it gets really low.
I think you're probably correct in that, like, it is a scenario that's possible, because there are people they're not native to Bitcoin, they don't really own Bitcoin, they did purely this GBTC arb, and they're seeing Bitcoin go up, but like GBTC's nuking, and they're like, well, I mean, I'm down enough money on this, I may as well just like call it a day, just get out of Dodge, like sell the GBTC for a loss and just like never do that shit again.
Yeah.
But I think we also have to counter in the fact that like people want to own Bitcoin, and if they see something like GBTC, which is still pretty hot and like it's still exposure to Bitcoin at like too big a discount, it becomes like their incentive to buy, just because you're buying discounted Bitcoins. So I think it could go lower, but there are too many kind of like incentives for people to buy it still. So I don't expect anything like March-esque.
Okay.
Sorry to ruin your dreams, Don.
I mean, it's just like something where I'd be interested to pick something up that I would otherwise not consider, because I don't really see a good point for me as like a retail investor trader to kind of get into it. But if it gets massively discounted, I mean, why not, right? If you can get it, I mean, right now it's already quite a bit discounted.
I think double digits is where kind of people will start paying closer attention to it.
Yep.
Maybe.
That's kind of what I'm aiming for too.
You are right in that there are like there's a few funds that like don't care about Bitcoin and they're purely in the GBTC trade, and like they're getting freaking nuked right now.
Yeah.
And so their capitulation is possible.
Speaking of funds, I wanted to ask, first of all, let's get this video to 100 likes. That'd be sick. Thank you for those who've stuck around with us on Jujutsu Kaisen Friday. But also, speaking of funds, eGirl Capital is a thing, right? I've been told. I thought it was a meme, to be completely honest with you.
No, we're an official fund.
But I've heard you're an official fund. First of all, is it legal?
Of course.
Okay, awesome. Just had to get that out there. But yeah, what's eGirl Capital? Why is it not a meme? What do you invest in? How do you have investors? Tell us about this project, because I've got no idea.
It's all private capital, but no, we're a collection of crypto native individuals, and we just go for kind of the VC route. Only the really kind of cream of the cream projects, like he isn't our CEO, he's just one of our partners, but we like to call him the CEO, Mr. CL.
Right.
Our first ever trade as eGirl Capital was to long socks, and I think it's up 13x, 14x.
That's a pretty good investment.
Yeah, it's kind of niche investments.
Okay, but so
yeah,
what? I suppose why is the question? Is it just you could be more capital efficient and not have to raise money and then get into those types of deals, pre-sales, allocations, whatever? Is it just a bit of fun? Do you have wider aspirations? So what's the big play with eGirl Capital?
All of the above.
Right.
We are first and foremost a fund that likes to have fun.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. Humble beginnings, and then.
No, I'm pretty excited about some of our investments, though. Like I won't shit anything.
Right. No, I understand.
I'm super excited about.
Because people might not be aware, but this happens a lot, just less formally in the background in the crypto, especially crypto Twitter, but also crypto side of things, where you'll get pools of capital, usually from people who are reasonably well connected or can offer something like, I don't know, tweets, if I had to guess, right? And one way to get into those allocations is basically a trade. I'm sure eGirl Capital is different, but just to give people some sense of perspective, I'm mega influencer crypto cred who tweets about shitcoins all day. Someone with a giga brain tells me about this project they're working on, right? And Uniswap's also made all of this way easier in regards to getting liquid listings. But nonetheless, I'm like, they come to me and say, look, you've got this amount of followers and everyone loves when you tweet about shitcoins. We're working on this. We can get you an allocation of whatever amount of USD for our private sale, pre-sale, whatever, in return for your hard-earned expertise of typing on the keyboard, our ticker and building some brand promotion, whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's great. I accept, get my whatever pre-sale tokens, start shilling the project on Twitter, often in an undisclosed manner, as seems to be becoming increasingly popular, which sucks, but hey, bull market, right? And then, by the time it lists, and again, used to kind of you'd have to have like agreements in place, maybe like with a SEX, etc., etc. Now it's just a lot easier via DEXs to get through that step, and that's it. Magic. You're up a lot, and you're a VC investor. So I know the dark absolutely loves that side of how business is done. But yeah, just to give some perspective to the audience, back in the day. It was your fucking Ian Bellina super whitelist Excel sheet, and it became completely you couldn't enter any of those pre-sales, which had his endorsement, so to speak. Now it's slightly different, but it's still very much the case. But you have the allocation process isn't exactly what we'd want it to be. I don't know where I'm going with this.
No,
I just thought providing some context is useful.
It's very kind of bell curve where
Right.
pretty much at this point it's either like if a project's legit and their quality, they just won't offer you any like the opportunity to invest. They'll only go for like quality names, quality brands.
Yeah.
It's the complete other side where it's like, sweet, we're gonna launch this shit, we're gonna rug in a day. let me find the sleaziest, dirtiest just jerks to like giga shill us and get us the most liquidity as quickly as possible. And they'll be like, hey, we'll give them like 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I've been seeing on Twitter and pretty much everywhere else is suddenly the same names pop up, the same people kind of shill it, and it is what it is, right? I mean, everyone for themselves, I guess, in the bull market. I just kind of find it like the problem that I have with all of it is that it's all this like undisclosed, and everyone's just kind of pretending like they've seen it the first time. Like, oh, look at this just launched. This is so great. And they've been in it and they've gotten it for like 1/100th of the price of the people that are going to get it, that they're shilling it to. That just is super sleazy to me.
I think as a community, we should like kind of work more towards exposing these people really. Because I think there's kind of like this taboo where it's like, hey, you know, he does this, but it's fine. They don't want to start any beef. But like, we have a responsibility at this point because there are so many new people in like coming to crypto, and it's a detriment to the entire space. Because like, say you're new to crypto, you're like, oh, this guy shilled this project. I like crypto. Crypto's cool. Let me invest in it, and then you lose all your money. And like, it's just gonna leave a sour taste.
Mate,
in your
I'm
mouth
pretty sure we're the worst self-policing community on the internet. If there's some sort of prize for just this pure sheer absence of self-policing and accountability, we must be up there, right? It's really
Yeah, we should really change that, jeez.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried in the past, and all I've gotten for it was like constant hate for it. Like the people don't really realize, because I talked about this yesterday in a tweet, right? And then everyone in the comments is like, "Yeah, dude, you should kind of open up. You should say who you suspect to do it or who you know to do it." But the thing is, like, if you do, you're just gonna be sitting there taking abuse day after day after day. And in the end, no one really cares. Nothing changes. I've done like several times where I've spoken out about this kind of stuff, and then nothing ever changed. The people that I've talked about, besides, I think once I kind of took down like a paid group leader back in the day. I think you were on there too. Like, yeah.
The eagle guy.
Yeah, eGirl Academy. That was it. I mean,
certified.
that was interesting, yeah. But like that was the only time I ever saw any consequences for scummy behavior. And then all you kind of stuck with being the person that kind of blew the whistle is the hate of all of these people, which at some point, I mean, honestly, like even people that I thought I respected nowadays are going that route. So it's like you're gonna be kind of hated for it by the community that you're trying to protect. So it's tiresome, not gonna lie. But yeah. I agree.
Right. I can be the anchor.
The thing is, I used to have a very naive understanding of like crypto VC, quote unquote. I was like, oh well, clearly these guys just know stuff that I don't, right? And that there's some real edge that's being offered, and it's like a marketing agreement, and there's all sorts of, you know, it's a real partnership, etc. I thought there was real depth to it, and I'm sure a lot of the time there is, right? I don't mean to paint with a brush, and obviously there are legit crypto VCs which invest in legit ecosystems, etc. Like the stuff we see on Twitter primarily, you know, once you gain an understanding of what those quote unquote partnerships entail, there's like no value add, right? Aside from Twitter engagement or generate liquidity.
You have a product you're selling, it's your followers.
Yeah.
Yep. And what they don't realize, that's the most... I'm not sure if they don't... I'm just going to assume they're not realizing it, is like everyone that's doing this, and there's a bunch of big names in it. I mean, just how it is.
Crypto Donald.
They're kind of... they're just kind of telling themselves that they're not harming anyone. I'm just chilling this project. I'm making a bunch of money, and no one's gonna be harmed. But what they don't
like
realize
people
is,
tell you to buy.
yeah, exactly. But what they don't realize is that, I mean, someone's gonna sit on those bags, right? And you kind of, what you're doing is, you're not only enriching yourself, you're also kind of making scummy projects rich by shilling their stuff, making your followers buy into it. And the only two like real parties that make a bunch of money is the influencer that does it, and then the party that kind of made it all happen, which kind of created the coin, created whatever, and everyone else just sitting on the backs.
It's very negative sum as well. Like, your followers buy the coin. The money they spent on it goes to the coin dev, and he just spends the money on coke. Like, he hasn't reinvested the money into the ecosystem. Like, he's going out and popping ace of spades.
I mean, look, I don't think any overnight transformation is going to happen or anything like that, but like, at least disclose. It's such a low bar, and also just, I think, a legal requirement in most jurisdictions. I don't even know how this sits in most jurisdictions, these types of deals. Yeah, it doesn't look great, right? But at least disclose, like, hey, I got this for pennies compared to where you're getting it. I'm up 50x by the time it lists, but hey, maybe there's still some merit here, and this is the project, you know?
I think it was just too immature. Like, we're all still kind of like, oh no, what if I disclose that this is a paid ad, and people like, hey, this guy does paid ads.
Yeah, so people would just rather break all the rules rather than, I don't know. I find it pretty bizarre. But I also agree with you that the self-policing angle is a bit of a meme, because we just never fucking do it. Some of the most prolific, dubious operators from 2017 are still totally around. Maybe they're doing stocks, maybe they're doing other stuff, but like, there's very short-term memories paired with terrible policing means that the incentives to not do this stuff are actually pretty fucking low, because at the end of the day, no one gives a shit, and that's pretty bleak, but also seems to be the reality of the situation.
Yep. Oh, well, I think it's a dead horse at this point.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it just takes different forms every couple of years, right? This undisclosed self-enrichment, to give it like a broad brush term, it's always going to be around in one form or another. It just changes its name, skin, whatever. So, I mean, for the audience, I guess the takeaway is, when you see a ticker that just suddenly comes out of nowhere, and like very similarly positioned accounts all suddenly have a view on it, I'm not saying run for the hills, avoid it, etc., but at least, you know, engage your intellect. Think slightly beyond what you're seeing. Maybe there's some sort of marketing agreement there. Maybe there's some sort of partnership agreement there that you may be aware of. And big accounts backing something shouldn't be a reason for you to suspend your own, you know, critical faculty. Still do the same research you would otherwise, maybe doubly so. Whatever. Again, I don't mean to say that every single case of this is bad, malicious, all crypto VCs are scams, but there are certain instances in which, you know, be careful, I guess.
Yeah. And the one thing that I do want to say before, like, in general, before we kind of move on, if we move on, is that, like, what I always see when I talk about this topic is people coming up and saying, yeah, look at this coin that's been around for 5 years. Everyone that talks about it must be paid. Like, that's not the case. Like, most of the time, this kind of stuff happens with new listings, just because there's the most money in it. And like, I've seen people accuse, like, nano shields, for example, for this, where they're like, okay, yeah, nano, like, it's mentioned everywhere. They're probably paid. I've not seen any of that kind of stuff in a long time. I mean, I've been approached by a couple of projects that wanted me to shield their stuff, but it's rare in comparison to the. I mean, back in 2017, it was ICOs. Nowadays, it's new listings on Uni, basically on every kind of DeFi that you can think of. Like, it's the same with BSC, Uni, on every kind of exchange DEX, that you can think of. Yeah, and every DEX. So that's kind of the latest thing, where you go for these new listings and they list with the already being up 20x. You make a shitload and then you dump on your followers that while telling them that it's actually a good project. That's kind of the thing that I've been seeing. And the funny thing is, a lot of these people that are doing it with doxed wallets.
Oh man,
based, and it's like you can even check who's doing it, and it's like, yeah, come on. I'm sure it has to be illegal what they're doing, but no one really cares because it's crypto. So
Right.
yeah.
Loom, you've been incredibly generous with your time. Any final notes, even topics? Want to bring up something to leave the people with? Maybe a trend to pay attention to, something to bear in mind. Any wisdom? Maybe stuff you're interested in. I'll give the floor to you.
Well, guys, constrain your risk. Never over leverage. For if you look at like a historical perspective of crypto, it's usually the leveraged traders who end up underperforming.
That's a very
And don't do your own research. There we go. There's a nice kind of blanket, just absolves me of all legal liability.
That's a classic one, right?
Just BYOR.
BYOR, yeah.
There we go.
Also, on an unrelated note, we're coming out with Technical Roundup coin. That's coming. Duck, what have you got for our audience heading into the weekend?
Not much, really. I appreciate you guys coming by. Always fun to kind of chat about everything. I appreciate Loom for coming by. Always nice to catch up. And yeah, wish everyone a nice weekend, and pray for Bitcoin to not dump any further, which is a tall ask with how it's looking.
I can get behind that. Fantastic. Loom, thank you. Audience, thank you. The show's sponsor, Bybit, thank you as well. Make sure to like the video, and also let us know in the chat if you'd like to see this on Spotify, iTunes, whatever, audio only. I don't know how much you know that if that's valuable to people, but if that's an option, we'll happily integrate all the audio only stuff for your non-existent train journeys, because everything's locked down anyway. That's it. That's all from us, gentlemen. Thank you, audience. Have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you on Monday for Monday Markets. Take care.